Hey, can you please send an email off to Greg, letting him know that we're going to be getting donuts tomorrow in the San Francisco area from 5 to 6 p.m. If you could also book the appointment right away, just book it in for 5 to 6 p.m. with Greg. We want to be doing some research on the donut places in the San Francisco area, and just send some of the options off to Greg. And there we go. All agents were just triggered in that request. We got some emails sent out, we got a calendar booked in, and we got our research agent going as well. This is the appointment it just made with Greg. So appointment with Greg for tomorrow at 5 to 6 p.m., which is awesome. And this right here is the email that it also sent off to Greg as well, telling him that we've got an appointment tomorrow from 5 to 6 p.m. to go eat donuts in San Francisco. And here are some of the best places that I've researched that it has found as well. And if we have a look at the actual research agent and look at Perplexity, you'll see all the research that it did here. You'll see that it's got a lot of articles that it went through with the best donuts in San Francisco, a bunch of other articles here, as well as to everything that it did research on that went back to the research agent and sent through a bunch of different locations that we could go to, which was obviously emailed to Greg as well. All right, so let's get started in building out this agent. You saw the demo there. We're going to be able to plug this into Telegram. We're going to be able to speak with it over the phone and get it to do any of the tasks that we want it to. So jumping right in, this right here is n8n, and I'm going to be doing the complete build out from scratch. I'm going to showcase exactly how to build every individual agent, part of this agent, and also how to connect Telegram and create the Telegram connection with the bot, and everything that you need to know to get this up and running. But if you do want to speed this up and you don't want to follow through and build it out yourself, I will have this template and all of the agent templates connected in this system within my free school community, which I'll have linked in the description. We've got over 19,000 members now. We've got 50 plus other AI agent templates and courses, and it is 100% free. So I definitely would recommend joining, and I've got the link in the description. All right, so to kick it off, the first thing that we're gonna go ahead and do is get our Telegram agent bot set up so that we can send it messages and send it those voice messages as well, so we can talk to it. And then we're gonna connect this to n8n. So to get the Telegram bot set up, you'll have to go over to Telegram. This right here is the web app for Telegram. This also works on your phone as well, of course. And the way to create a bot is to go to a particular bot on Telegram called the bot father. So you can send a message to the bot father by sending a message to the username of @botfather. This is a Telegram created system to actually generate the bots that we can use in automations like the one that I'm going to be building. And all that we need to do is just follow the instructions that it gives us when we start the conversation with it. And you can see here that it has a bunch of pre-made messages that you can send off to do a bunch of actions. So in our case, we want to create a new bot, and all we need to type is /new bot. So I can type /new bot. This is going to allow us to trigger the process to create that new bot. It's going to ask us what we'd like to name it. And I can name this whatever I would like. And then it's going to ask us for actually creating a username for it. So I'm just going to add the same name and then put _bot, pretty much just following the instructions that it gives us. And then the next message is going to be giving us an access token. We can copy this access token and then use it on n8n in just a second. Overall, pretty simple to get that up and running. But once we're on n8n, what we need to do is jump into add a first step and then type Telegram. So Telegram is a native module here on n8n, which is nice. And we can just click into the triggers of Telegram and then just click on message. So that just means that on a new message, when it's received, we are going to be able to trigger this workflow and handle that message and then eventually respond to it. Once you've got this on the page, just double clicking into this actual step here. At the top, you'll see credential to connect with. So in here, this is where you're going to connect your actual credential for that Telegram bot. So the access token is the access token that was generated right here. Just copy and paste it directly into this box and hit save. A green box will pop up telling you that it's connected, and that's all you need to do. So I've connected my agent. That is all ready to go, and we should be able to now send a message into n8n. And if you want to test it, you can just hit the execute workflow button right here, jump into Telegram and just send it a message. And once you've done that, clicking into the step right here, you'll see that the actual message will come through. And all the way at the bottom, you'll see text, and that is the message I just sent through. So hello, I just sent that through. And that is obviously working now. The next module that I'm going to throw in here is going to be a switch step. So the reason we're adding in a switch step in this case is that we're going to have two different pathways based on the message that is sent through for Telegram. So I want this to be able to handle voice messages that are sent through so we can talk to it very naturally over the phone on Telegram. But we also want to be able to actually just send it some text. And so we need to create a condition to split those pathways so that we can handle them just a bit differently. So making sure to connect the Telegram message here, you can just drag it and connect it directly to the switch node. And then jumping into the switch node right here, we're just going to be setting 2 routing rules for our conditions. So if I click add routing rule right here and I jump out of this, you'll see we've got 2 pathways now added. So depending on the conditions that we have in the switch node, it will go down one path or the other. So to do this, we're going to go ahead and go down to the bottom left right here where the text says hello. I'm going to drag that into the first routing rule. And all I'm going to do is swap this condition tab right here, go into string, and then put it on exists. So if this string of json.message.text exists at all, so that would only exist if we actually sent it a message and that value could be populated, then we know that we've received text and we can continue down and actually respond to that text. Jumping out of this, we're going to go ahead and hit execute workflow once again. And the reason that I'm going to do that is because I am now going to send it a voice message so we can detect it in our switch as well. So if I just hold down on this button right here, hey, this is just a test of the Telegram voice. There we go. I just sent through a voice message on Telegram. This has just ran through automatically. We can see it's already trying to go down this pathway. So we could actually leave it empty and it potentially might still work. But what we can do is look down at the bottom of this request where we see voice. So this is obviously only going to populate if a voice message has been sent through in the first place. So there's a few different things that we can do. But what I'll do is grab this file ID right here, throw it into this, and then I'll say if this string exists at all. So obviously, if we get a voice file ID, then that means that a voice message was sent through. So now we've got our 2 different pathways, and now we can start to do something with them. I'll continue to build out the actual voice-based message flow right here. So I'll click on the plus button of the bottom, which was for the voice. And I'm going to type in Telegram once again. What we need to do is go down to file actions and do get a file. So obviously this text or this voice that we're sending through isn't automatically getting transcribed into text. That is something that we have to do ourselves. So this is something that we can do by using this particular module for get a file. And jumping into the file ID, you'll see that we've been given a prompt to provide a file ID. And as you can remember, the voice does give us this file ID. So I can drop that into this, and that is going to be able to look at that file, get that file, and bring it back into our flow so that it's actually usable for other stuff. And just to give this a test, I'm going to hit execute step, and we should see the data populate right here for that audio file. And if I just click view, you'll now see this audio thing pops up right here, and I can hit play and listen to it. Hey, this is just a test of the Telegram voice. So perfect. That's exactly what I just sent through, of course. And now we can use it throughout the flow. So next, I'm going to jump into doing an OpenAI transcription of audio. So in the OpenAI step here on n8n, if we just type transcribe, you'll see that we've got transcribe a recording. And so all this does is that we're using this specific ChatGPT module to listen to our recording and then transcribe it using AI. And this is going to give us the exact text that we can then use to send to our agent to do the rest of our actions later and throughout the flow. We've added the transcribe module and making sure that it's connected to the get a file module. This is pretty much automatically all set up for us. There's nothing we actually have to do to set up or configure this, as long as the input data field name is set to data, and that is the exact same as what's coming from the getter file. It's pretty much going to be set up for us. And we can test this by clicking execute step. It is going to transcribe that recording and we're going to get the text. And we can see here, hey, this is just a test of the Telegram voice. So awesome. That did exactly what I was expecting it to. And now we can reference this later in the flow. Now for the text flow, all that I'm going to do is do an edit field. So if I grab this right here, the edit fields module, all I'm going to do is take the Telegram text message and I'm going to assign it with a specific variable that we can use and reference later on in our flow. Now, the reason for this is that we don't want to reference the actual message that's coming from Telegram if we go down the voice flow, because then this variable won't be set at all and the value will be incorrect and it could break the flow. So we're just adding an edit field to set it custom. So in here, if I click add a field, we can just set this to whatever we like. And I can just type Telegram or text, you can name that whatever. It doesn't have to be that, of course. And then we can jump into our Telegram trigger and then just grab the text. And because we didn't run that previously, we will just need to run it again. So hit execute workflow, jump into Telegram, type hello there, send it through. That's come through, edit fields, and now we can reference it. So that is going to be equal to this text. And that's pretty much good to go. So the next thing that we're going to do is build out our AI agent. This is going to be the main AI agent, the sort of central one that connects into all of our other connections And this is what's going to be communicating back and forth with us as a user. So just clicking in the top right, we're going to jump into the AI step, of course, and click into AI agent. Putting this on the page, we're going to plug this into our agent, and we're going to plug this flow into our agent as well. I'm going to click on the agent. I'm going to hit spacebar, and I'm going to rename this the personal assistant AI agent. Don't need to do that, of course, but it's good to get some naming convention. And then I'm going to set up a couple of the default basic settings for an AI agent. So obviously adding in our chat model. I'm going to add in Open Router. This gives us access to a bunch of different AI models, makes it super easy to connect to. I've just selected GPT 4.1 mini, but depending on the complexity of your use case, you might want to use a more intelligent, more expensive model, a slower model, or a quicker model. But otherwise, we're just going to do this for now. I'll jump into memory. I'm just going to click on the simple memory from n8n. We don't have to do anything too crazy at the moment for our memory. If we do have some more complex requirements and we want to store data and just do it better, obviously we could use some of the other memory tools, but we're just going to use simple memory for now. And because we aren't using the chat trigger node, default n8n will always put the connected chat trigger node to our memory. This is not correct. We need to change this to defined below and then just add in our own key here. So this key is just determining which conversation this bit of memory is relevant to. We can just type in whatever we'd like here. In my case, I do want it to have context on all of the conversations that I've had with it in the past so that it can reference that conversational history and then maybe make some smarter decisions based on it. I could grab this from ID right here, which is related to my own Telegram account. So if I grab this ID, it just means that every conversation that I have with it, all of that memory is going to be associated with a line that is relevant to my own Telegram account. So no matter what, whenever we message this thing, it is going to remember us and it's going to be able to reference that past chat history. Next, we have to configure our tools. Now I'll jump back into this in just a second. I will complete the entire flow and then jump back into the tools. Obviously the tools are going to be the main juice, the main part of this entire agent setup. This system is going to be a multi-agent system. So I'm not just going to be building out some workflows to communicate with, but we're going to be building out other agents in other flows and workflows that we're going to call to, as you saw in the demo. And we're going to be able to do that all from the tool call. So just to complete this right now, I'm going to hit the plus button at the end of our AI agent step right here. I'm going to jump back into the Telegram module. I'm just going to type in message right here. We got a few different options. We just want to select send a text message. There's a couple of fields that we'll need to fill out in the send a text message with the chat ID and the text. Obviously the chat ID is referring to the specific conversation that we want to be sending this message into. So we can reference that from the first Telegram node right here. So I'll just rerun this. I'm going to delete this flow right here and hit execute workflow. I'll just jump in and send it a message and see if we can get that to go through. Looks like our agent failed here because we didn't give it a prompt. So I would recommend just giving it a very basic prompt right away. So this is going to be defined below. I'm just going to say, hello, an AI. Obviously that's the world's worst prompt. But just to get it to work, I'm going to put that in there. We'll just connect this. And then just to make sure that it works, I'm just going to connect this to our Telegram step and just type in a random ID and some random text. Hit execute workflow, jump into Telegram, send it a message. Should come all the way through, and then we can now reference the proper data. So if I get rid of this chat ID, Telegram trigger, we should see a chat ID, which is this one under chat. Put that in there, and then the text is going to come from our personal assistant AI agent, which is going to be the output. So cool, that's good to go. I can hit execute step, and it should come through on Telegram. Oops, that didn't work. That's just because my credential is actually on the wrong one. I'm going to swap it over to the one that I just created. Execute step, and that has just come through. So here we go. Hello, yes, I am an AI. How can I assist you today? You'll see that it actually has a bit of sort of a watermark at the bottom. This message was sent automatically with n8n. We can get rid of that by going to the bottom here, click add field, and then go to append n8n attribution. Click that and turn it off if we don't want it. So at this point, we can hit save. We obviously don't want to lose it at this point, but we're going to be now building out our tools, building out the main juice of this particular agent so we can start to communicate with real tools, get some real value out of it, and have them all talk to each other. So this can literally be my own personal assistant AI agent. So the first two areas that I want to cover, as you saw in the demo, will be an email function so that I can tell our agent to send emails off, draft emails, do whatever I would like it to related to my Gmail inbox. I want it to be able to handle that. Second to that, we're going to be doing a full-on Google Calendar integration. So if I want to create events, delete events, reschedule events, I am going to give it the full-on capability to do all of that, and it is going to be able to really all respond to each other. So jumping over into a brand new n8n workflow, we're going to go ahead and build out the email agent that we're going to connect into our personal assistant agent. So the first thing that I'm going to do is click on add a first step, of course, and I'm going to add in a trigger to trigger it from a different workflow. So you can see here on the triggers when executed by another workflow. So if I click on this, this is going to allow us to get all the settings necessary in order to call it essentially as its own tool, but still being its own, obviously a workflow and an agent that can do its own reasoning and tool calling, although it's all going to happen based on what our other agent says. Hopefully that made sense. I'm going to go ahead and just rename this agent at the top here to our AI email agent dash personal assistant. This can be named whatever you want, of course, but do make sure to name it, as we're going to come back into our main flow here. We're going to click onto the tool here and we're going to go into the call n8n workflow tool. If I click into this, we're going to get these settings here, namely the workflow at the bottom here. If I click choose, you're going to see a bunch of agents and workflows pop up from your existing n8n account. And from this, we can just select the AI email agent personal assistant that I just created. And now we are able to access that agent directly from a tool call, which is pretty awesome that we're able to do that. And it's so easy to do it as well. If you'd like, we can rename this by clicking the spacebar once again. And I'm probably just going to call this the email agent. So that's good to go. We've got the email agent here. We can jump back into this flow and we can build out everything necessary for our email agent. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just jump into this when executed by another workflow step. And I'm going to create a field. And this field is going to be relevant to the types of data that we want to send into our email agent. So on our first agent here, we are going to be obviously sending messages to it. And we're going to have our personal assistant agent talking back and forth with us, trying to determine what we want to do. And then it's going to send a message off to our email agent, essentially commanding it to do something specifically related to emails. And so because our agent is going to be handling this, it's likely going to be a message generated by the agent. So I'm not exactly sure what it's going to tell our email agent to do. It's going to be some sort of request to send an email or do something related to emails. And so all that I'm going to do is jump into this and I'm going to create a field called request. And so it's going to be for our AI to understand. And this is just going to allow us to accept one sort of string, a big text message for our request to then be used within our next workflow. And so I've added in this variable here. Once you've done that, you'll see that the error goes away. We can jump into our email agent tool, making sure to hit the save button up here. And then if we come back to this agent and jump into our email agent tool call, you'll see that the workflow input populates a new tab or a new box at the bottom here where we can put in our request. I'm just going to click on this, let the model define the parameter. That just means the AI itself is going to determine what that request is going to be for our email agent. So that's good to go. We're now going to be calling this workflow for our email agent, and I'm going to very simply just add in our email agent. Once again, it's not going to be connected to a chat trigger node. Obviously, we're going to do define below, and then what we can do is execute previous nodes. We are probably going to have to run the workflow entirely to get that variable to come through, although we're just going to be putting the request that comes from the previous agent into our prompt for our email agent. So what I might do is send a message off to Telegram telling it to send an email, and hopefully it's got enough context from the name there to actually run that tool call. So send an email to Greg, and then, oh, we didn't hit execute workflow. So make sure to do that. Looks like it's coming through now. And there we go. Okay, so it doesn't look like our tool call was actually ran in this case. So it looks like we will need to do a little bit of prompting. So I'm going to tell it, please use the email tool when the user requests it. So once again, world's worst prompt, although we're going to be coming back and doing a better job there. And then we're going to type call this tool when we need to do anything with emails. So the description here is used specifically for our agent to understand when it should be using this tool. And the prompt up here is the main system message prompt that we're going to be using to shape the conversation and to really give context to our main agent as to what its purpose is overall. So I'll give that a go. I'm going to hit execute workflow. Please send an email to Greg. See if that goes through. Running again, and it hasn't hit our tool call still. That's a bit annoying. I'll try add some better prompt conditioning here. And so the reason that it's actually throwing up this error that I just realized is that we're actually not referencing any of the text and messages that are coming through from my messages in Telegram for this agent. This agent's actually got no context as to what I'm even saying in the first place, which I should have assumed. But what we can do is just add our system message in the options here. We could probably take this as our system prompt and just paste it down here. The system message is more to do with the actual structure as to how our agent works and responds. And so the system message is best to have that type of context. And our user message is going to be the user message, of course. So pretty straightforward. We'll grab the Telegram text and put it in here. Because we are also going to be using the transcriber recording to do the voices as well, we would want to put that variable in here. So we can listen to our voice recordings as well, but just for the purpose of this demo, I'll hit save, I'll hit execute workflow, and that should be good to go. So please send an email to Greg, and that should hopefully run that tool call, and it still hasn't run the tool call. Now if I jump into here, it says, could you please provide me with content on the email you would like to send to Greg? So it's kind of getting a little bit in depth already here, even with practically no prompting. So I'm just going to tell it, tell Greg to make my lunch, Greg at inflate.agency. We'll see if that works. Execute workflow once again, get that email through, and hopefully there we go. Okay, it's called it. It was being a bit restrictive there, but if I jump back over to our email agent, you can see that it's actually tried to run it again. Jump into here, hit execute previous note, click into our editor, and I'm just going to run this one more time. I'm going to tell it to please send that again. That should hopefully hit our email agent. We can execute workflow here. That's now come through directly from our tool call, which is awesome. And I can now put our agent back in once again, so we can actually reference that. So in our agent, you'll see we've got the request type. It says null right here, although for whatever reason, it just isn't actually referencing what it actually says. This is working though, so we don't have to worry about that. Click define below, we can put the request in the user message, and this agent is ready to go. So I'll go ahead and build out this email agent. I'm going to rename this the email agent for naming sake. And I'm going to add a chat model for open router, of course. I'm going to add this as my account. I'm going to click on memory, simple memory. Once again, this is going to be referencing the actual key from before. So maybe that is something that we want to bring through from the other agent step. I'm just going to add a new field here at the start. And we just want to bring through the Telegram ID that's associated with myself as a Telegram user. So we can actually store that in the memory, so the agent just has a little bit more context, and the responses and output from it are just that bit better. So I've got the Telegram ID. I'll exit out of this, hit the save button, jump back over here, email agent. This should populate in a second. I'll hit refresh, Telegram ID, perfect. We'll click on mapping, and then we'll scroll down to where we can get the from ID. So cool, we'll drag and drop that in there. And now we can essentially be sending that off to our other agent. And so once that populates here, our email agent should have context of that. We'll have to run it once again to get that value through, but we can use this as our memory. So I'll quickly just run this and see if we can get that to work. So I'm going to hit save, and then I am going to run this once again. I'm going to send it a message, execute workflow. Please try again. Greg's going to be getting a lot of emails here. Email agent should hopefully trigger. Looks like an error, probably because of that value. So we'll click into here. There was an error in the subnode of simple memory. So I do know what that's referring to. It's referring to this having failed. So what I might do is just disconnect this completely at the moment. I'll hit save. I'm going to delete the memory just so it doesn't throw up an error. I'm going to hit save once again, execute workflow here, tell it to try again, and then that should go through and we can use it as a value in our flow. So that just ran through and that should be good to go. And we saw it come through on here as well. So I can jump into add memory again, delete this define parameter, and then put the Telegram ID. So hopefully that makes sense. We're just referencing that Telegram ID as our memory once again, exactly how we did it on the first agent here. So we've got context across all of our agents, and the conversational chat history is exactly the same. So jumping into the fun stuff, we're gonna now add some tools that are relevant to the email agent. And namely, I'm just gonna be using the Gmail tool to do this. So it's a pretty easy thing to get set up and running. And there's a lot of different tools that n8n has natively integrated in order to talk to Gmail in many different ways. There's other modules as well, like Outlook and other email tool and providers, but this is pretty easy to get going. So the first thing that I'm going to add to our email tool here is just the ability to send emails. So super basic. What I'll do is just add in the send operation right here. And super simple. I'm just going to go ahead and let the AI decide exactly what we want to do with the sending of an email. The to field, let it define it. The subject, it can define it. And the message, I'm going to let it define it as well. We're going full AI here. It is going to be handling everything to do with actually sending the email off. I'll just rename this to make it a little bit easier. So we're going to do send an email. It's probably the easiest. The next tool that I'm going to do is add in not just sending an email, but actually just creating a draft. I'm going to set it up so it's going to be a bit conditional, and our agent is going to determine if an email is high risk enough that we probably shouldn't be sending it off as an AI, and that we should be sending it as a draft instead. So it gives us some options that if we have to give a client some pricing information, something like that, and we don't want the AI to have full control over that, we've got an option to just create a draft rather than just sending it off. So this is super easy to do, just creating a tool, jumping into Gmail tool. We'll see resource at the top here. We just need to swap that over to draft. So we're not doing a message in this case. We're not sending an email. We're just creating a draft. The operation is going to be create because we're creating one. And then for everything else, we are going to be able to just let the AI decide exactly what to fill. So that's good to go. I'm going to rename this to create a draft. And then lastly, I want to be able to get some emails from my own inbox. So if I have a question about an email that I received at some point, or I have a question about a potential email I may have received, or I'm trying to get context, we want to be able to retrieve some emails as well. And this is just as easy as the rest. Jump into the Gmail tool. We're going to be able to change the operation from send to get many. And get many is literally just getting many emails. So it's going to be getting all of the most recent emails for a certain limit that we set it to. At the moment, by default, it's set to 50, which is quite a lot of emails. So if we're just going to be using this for the recent amount of emails in our inbox, this should be pretty perfect for that. And then that is good to go. So I can rename this to get emails from inbox. And now with just these 3 tools added, we are going to be able to not only send emails, create drafts if we need to, but also get all of the emails from our inbox as well. And they can all work together. So it's not just a workflow where one tool is going to get run. We can look at our inbox, determine what kind of emails we have in there. Based on that, we can send a draft, we can send an email, we can write up emails based on that. Really, whatever we tell it to do, it will be able to handle it. So now in order to actually respond back to our main agent from this particular email agent, I'm just going to do an edit field. So if I jump into the end of the step here, we'll type edit fields. We'll be able to set a field that we want to specifically send back to our agent. So we get a lot of control over this. But for the most part, I'm just going to be sending back the AI response to our main agent. Once that's added in, we're just going to create a new field here, and I'm just going to call it response. And that is going to be then read by our main agent as the actual response that's coming back. We're going to populate this field here with the AI output. We do need to run it though in order to actually get that field to be able to actually populate. So I'll hit save and I'll go and try to give this thing a run once again. So I'll hit execute workflow, try and see if I can get it to send Greg an email once again. That will get sent off. Trigger this tool, that should come through. Doesn't look like I've set it up enough to actually use it. So I'm going to jump into the email agent. So that ran through perfectly. And what I can do is just hit copy to editor, and then we can actually use those values that ran through with. So it hit our email agent. It sent an email off to probably Greg. So in this case, we can have a look at this and see what it did. It sent an email to Greg for a lunch request. Please make my lunch. Great email format there. And that sent it off. And then it hit this edit field. We can jump into here and just take the output and drag it in. So we'll hit save and then jump back to our main agent right here. We do need to configure the email here to actually get the response back as well. So that's all good to go. If we jump into our email agent, we can actually see the response coming back from the output with the response from our email agent as to what actually occurred in the last run. And now we can use that and reference it in the text message that is sent off to the user on Telegram. So we're all good to go now on that connection. I'm now going to do some prompting to make sure that this system works really well and can communicate with all the different tools. And it's going to be, actually useful for us. So if I jump into the email agent right here, we can add in a main system message if we click into the options here. And this system message will just be pretty much telling it that it's specifically an email agent. It's got access to these 3 different types of tools. And based on the user request, use it appropriately, use the ones that you think is going to be most relevant. So you are an email AI agent. You have access to send an email, draft an email, and read the email inbox. If an inquiry is not very important or seems easy to respond to, please use the send an email tool. If an inquiry is critical or seems important, please use the draft an email tool so a team member can respond to it. This is very critical to our business, so please choose wisely. We'll do a little bit of emotional prompting there to make sure that it understands the importance of obviously sending as opposed to drafting. And then at the end, if you need some context on our inbox, please use the get emails tool to retrieve the 50 latest emails from the inbox. So that should be good enough for a very basic first shot prompt there. We can also add descriptions for each of these so that it understands exactly what each individual tool is going to be used for. It's got context for the name of each tool, so it should do a pretty good job. But we can also add in the tool description at the top here, where you can see it's set automatically, but we can set it manually if we'd like as well. Really don't think we even need to. I think it's very, very basic for this use case. So to test if this is actually working, we're going to hit execute workflow, and I'm going to give it maybe a critical email that we want to send, and we want to have it put in a draft and not actually get sent out. So, hey, Greg has fallen over in the office. We require medical assistance immediately, and we need these specific types of medication to help out: Band-Aids and a stretcher. Given it a pretty intense example here of Greg who's fallen over in the office, we'll send that over to the agent and see if we're able to process that, and see what our agent decides to do with it. So Telegram has come back. I've created a draft email requesting urgent medical assistance with Band-Aids and a stretcher. Would you like me to send it now or keep it as a draft? So awesome. Jump back into our executions here and have a look at the latest one. We'll see what ton of theory went behind this, but it looks like it did exactly what we needed it to. The email agent processed exactly what was going on. And if I jump into my Gmail here, I've got this draft that came up. Hi, Greg. Greg has fallen over in the office and requires immediate medical assistance. We urgently need Band-Aid stretcher to help out. So obviously there is, obviously you wouldn't be sending an email to Greg if Greg is the one that's fallen over. So there's a little bit of context mismatch in that case. I didn't really give it a good message to tell it who to actually send this email off to, which is something that I should have done. But otherwise, this is pretty much done exactly what you'd want it to. It's given us a good email format. Doesn't really look too AI generated at all. It looks very standard, and we can just jump in here, put a recipient and send that message off. So that's perfect, doing exactly what we'd expect it to. And I'm going to leave that for our email agent for now. And we're going to jump into building out our calendar and appointment booking agent. Once again, creating a brand new workflow for our appointment booking flow right here. I'm going to click on add a step. We're going to be using the when executed by another workflow. We're going to add in 2 different fields, one for our request and one for the Telegram ID. Once that's done, we're going to now create our AI agent by jumping into the agent step. We're going to swap it over from the chat trigger node to being a define below. I'm going to rename this agent to be our appointment booking personal agent. Whatever name doesn't really matter. We can jump back into our main agent. We're going to create the brand new tool. We're going to click into here, call n8n workflow tool. We're going to then select our appointment booking personal agent. We've then got our 2 fields down here. We're going to let the AI define this, and then the Telegram ID is going to come from our from ID. I'm going to drag and drop that right in there. Once again, I'm going to just call it appointment booking to make it super simple. Now that is mostly all connected. Jumping into here, I'm probably just going to delete this agent just so we can actually get the fields to populate, so we can make it easy for ourselves. So I am going to hit save. I'm going to come over here and I am going to prompt this into our workflow so it actually knows that this exists. So I'm going to tell it that please use our calendar tool when you need to use it. Once again, that's probably the world's worst prompt, but it will get it done at least once for us. And I probably am going to rename this from the appointment booking tool to the calendar tool, because it's not just going to be used for appointment booking. So just to make it a little bit clear across all of our different flows, I might rename this calendar booking as well. And then we might just need to update this as well to be calendar booking. Done that automatically. Awesome. Hit save and we'll give it a go. Hi, can you please book in a doctor appointment for Greg? See if that goes through. See if we can hit the calendar. There we go. Awesome. Calendar has been hit. Jump back into here and our executions should have ran. There we go. I will then copy the editor if we can get the right values through. And if we look into here, we'll see that we've got the request and the Telegram ID, which is awesome. We'll then click plus AI agents, and then define below. And then in here, request is coming through. Perfect. So we'll just add a chat model once again, open router as always. We're then going to be adding in our memory, simple memory. This is then going to be coming from our Telegram ID. So define below, Telegram ID as the key, all good to go once again, like we did it before. I'll rename this agent the calendar agent just to make it super nice for our naming convention. And then we can jump into the main stuff for our calendar agent, which is going to be looking at Google Calendar. So I can just type for the Google Calendar, and once again, really awesome. They've got all of the Google tools and whatever functions you'd need, pretty much all here on n8n. So we can click Google Calendar tool, and now we can jump into this, which is very similar to the setup of the Gmail agent. It's going to allow us to book in appointments. It's going to allow us to look up calendar events on our actual calendar and do whatever we want with it. So make sure to connect your Google Calendar account at the top here with your credential. Pretty easy to do, actually. It just allows you to do a direct authentication login. So you just log in with your email and password, and then it's good to go. Then below this, we've got the resource, which is going to be creating an event. And then we've got the operation, which is going to be create. So we're creating an event. And then below this, we've got calendar. If you use multiple calendars on your one Google Calendar, you can select the specific one. In my case, I want to set some meetings. And then below this, we've got a start and an end time. And I'm just going to let the AI decide this. Obviously, the time of the appointment booking is going to be dependent on what the user wants. And we can very easily just set this to let the AI decide when it should start, when it should end, and just we can prompt the rest of it. So I'll rename this once again. We'll just create event just to make it super simple. Now, one really important thing to note is that because we are using the AI to define when we're going to be looking at the events on our calendar, our AI doesn't have any context as to what today's date is. So we do need to give it some context. We do need to tell it what today's date is so it has some context as to when to look on the calendar. So if we ask about the events that are happening tomorrow, we want to be able to have context of today being Friday and tomorrow being Saturday or whatever day, obviously. We can do that by giving it that context. And so I'll jump into the calendar agent right here and just add this into the system message and just give it more prompting as well to make it really well-rounded. So you are a calendar agent. You have access to create calendar events as well as check our calendar for events. You need to ensure you check the right dates with the current time. This is the current date and time. And if I just quickly look over to the left-hand side where you see variables and context, if I just click into this, you're going to get a drop down with some values that come through. And you're going to see that we've got a now and a today field. So this is for our sort of current dates. And this is what we're going to be using to reference in our system to have that context that we need for it to be relevant for the dates. And so I can either put today, which is just going to set the time to 0, or we can put in now, which is going to do the exact time. We'll use the exact time. I think there's no reason not to, so we'll drag and drop that in here. And now this has context on the exact date and time. And just for a little bit of prompt conditioning, I'm going to say, please ensure you use this date and time when looking up emails, when looking up events. So that's good to go. We'll hit save. So before I give it a go and see if it works, we are obviously going to add in our edit fields right here. We're going to be creating the response field right here. I'm adding in the value of the AI output. So we do need to run it to obviously actually get that field once again. So we'll just hit delete, hit save, and then we'll just run it. So I'll just say to try again, or I'll just tell it to create an event for tomorrow. I have a meeting with a client. I'll just tell it is from 1 to 2 p.m. See if that works. We'll send it off. See if it hits through. Should hit the calendar booking agent. Jump into here. This should now be getting hit with an execution. We can see that it is right here. And it looks like we have hit the create event, which is perfect. I can jump into this and see what actually happened. We can see it's been set for tomorrow, and we can see that it's been set for 2 o'clock as the end date time and 1 o'clock as the start. So that is awesome. That has been sent through. So that is good to go. I am going to hit copy to editor to get all of the values from that execution. Hit that, and then we can pretty much unpin, and that'll pin the new data. And then we can drag the calendar agent to edit the field. And then in here, obviously we've got our response from the calendar agent, which says that the meeting has been scheduled. And it's just sort of a response there, which is cool. That will then get sent back to our Telegram agent that we can then use in our conversation. So jumping back here, we're clicking to our calendar booking. It looks like the output actually was already coming through anyway. We didn't need to set that field, but we do like to set the field anyway so that it doesn't just say output, it actually says response. Can help our agent get the context that it needs to understand that this is actually the response that's came through from this particular tool call. So it's a good thing, and a good thing to have control over. So before I build out the last tool, which is going to be used for research and connecting into tools like Wikipedia and Perplexity to do a bit more deep research within our personal assistant here, I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to try it out. I'm going to see if we can send some emails, do some calendar bookings, check our calendar, and just see if it's working at the moment, and do some voice triggers as well. And we do actually need to test this because we actually have to reference our transcriber recording field into each of our agents and send through that as its regular text. So we do need to do this anyway. So I'll do that. And then we can start to play around with it and see how it works. So super simple. I'll hit execute workflow. I'll jump into Telegram and give it a message. Hey, can you send an email off to Greg once again, and then also book a meeting with Greg for tomorrow at 4 p.m. So there you go. It went through. And like I said, we haven't actually referenced the information to be able to use this voice recording. But what we can do is have a look at our transcriber recording. Hey, can you send an email off to Greg once again, and then book a meeting with Greg for tomorrow at 4 p.m. Awesome. That transcribed it perfectly. We can jump into our assistant right here. And then what we can do is just reference it again. And in order to do that, what we can do is just delete the connection directly from this into our agent and just plug it directly into the edit field. And the reason that we're doing that is so we can set that edit field to exactly the same sort of variable and value that was set from our initial Telegram trigger. And jumping into our edit field right here, we're just gonna create a new field and then just copy Telegram text. And then we're gonna populate it with the actual voice note that comes through. So I'll hit save and I'll just send through a new voice note so we can actually get that value populating. Execute workflow. Hey, can you send an email to Greg telling him that we're gonna get donuts after work today? So that'll send through. Hopefully that'll hit the edit field and we can actually use it. It'll probably start to reference that, but if we jump into edit fields, we can now scroll down, transcriber recording, and then just chuck that into here. And now we can actually use this same variable throughout the conversation, which is nice. Hit save. It errored there, obviously, because we weren't referencing anything. And we can probably just organize this a little bit if you'd like to make it not so messy. We can drag that all the way there, and maybe we can add these up here. You can obviously do this however you'd like, but ultimately that is all now connected. So let's give this a final run through. I'll just exit out of this particular workflow that's running right here. We'll hit execute workflow, and I'm going to give it a good request. Hey, can we send an email off to Greg just telling him about a meeting that I want to schedule for tomorrow from 3 to 4 p.m. So this meeting is just going to be a brief rundown about the project that we're working on. Nothing too crazy. So I've sent that off. We'll see what happens there. I made it a little bit tricky for it, telling it to not only send an email, but also do the calendar booking. So we'll see if it's able to process that with the basic prompts that I have. They're obviously not that great of a prompt that I currently have. So email agent triggered doesn't look like the calendar booking agent triggered. Honestly, not too surprised about that based on how poor my prompt is and how poor my question was there. But we can see that the email did get sent off, which was perfect. Obviously, Greg's not a real person, so it didn't go anywhere. But hi, I would like to schedule a meeting with you tomorrow from 3 to 4 p.m. It'll be a brief rundown about the project. So it actually looks like the agent in this case decided that Greg needed to confirm the appointment time, which is cool. It didn't just book it in right away, but that's just something to do with prompting and setup and however you'd like it based on preference. And then if we look at Telegram, once again as well, the email to Greg about the meeting scheduled with a brief rundown has been sent. If you need any further assistance, feel free to ask. So we're getting a response back as well. It's talking back to us, which is awesome. So the final agent that I'm going to showcase how to build out will be a research agent. This is going to be able to plug into Perplexity as well as Wikipedia to do some really deep research, something that you're going to be able to just talk to it very easily. And it's going to have context on obviously not only your email and your calendar, but to be able to do research. And if it needs to use them all together, it's going to have the capability to do that. So for example, if you wanted to send an email to Greg about some facts about something, it's obviously going to be able to do the proper research on Perplexity to get the proper facts and do the research on Wikipedia and just really give a good amount of context in our workflow. So creating our research agent, we should be able to speed run this by now as you know how to build all those other agents and connect them into our main agent. But for our research agent, obviously, once again, it's going to be executed by another workflow. I'm going to rename this for our research agent. So research agent, personal assistant, just for naming convention sake, we'll put that in there. Make sure that's saved, jump back to our main agent, create a new tool called n8n workflow. We're going to choose the research agent. We're then going to hit the save button on our end here. I'm going to rename this just the research agent to make it super, super simple. I'll jump back into our research agent. We do want to probably give it a little bit of prompting so that we can send through our values here, but I'm going to give it both of the fields that we need. So this is going to be the request as well as the Telegram ID. So we've got both of them all connected there. We'll hit save. Once we've done that, it'll then populate here. If we hit refresh, we've got the request, which we are going to automatically populate with AI, of course, and then Telegram ID is going to come from the Telegram ID here. That's all good to go. I'll fix up my main system prompt here to give context about the research. If you need to do any research or say deep research on any topic, please use the research tool. Once again, really basic prompt. Would not recommend doing that prompt for anything other than a demo. Then for our research agent, we can obviously click into it here, but I've got it on another tab. We can now create our new agent for this. I'm going to hit execute workflow here, and I'm going to go to Telegram. Please do some research on restaurants in the area of San Francisco for donuts. Greg likes them. See what happens there. So messages coming through. Hopefully we can do some research. So I just ran a quick test and realized there was one thing that we do need to change in the edit fields. If we are going to be sending text and we are going to be sending the voice, we can't have this set as the exact same variable names. We do just have to change them up a little bit. So we'll change it to Telegram text type, and we've got Telegram text for the voice. Two different variables, and then we're just going to reference both of them when we are in the prompt of the user message. Just put them both in there so it can get either one of them depending on which one gets called. Otherwise, I'm going to tell it to do some research on restaurants in the area of San Francisco for donuts, and Greg likes them. So I'm going to send them off, hit execute workflow, and see if we can get a research agent to trigger here. Looks like it did, which is awesome. Jumping into here, and we can see that that came through, which is perfect. So we'll jump into creating our agent now. That is going to be referencing everything that came from the request. So we'll change it to define below. Request is going to get thrown into here. We'll add our open router chat model once again. I'm going to swap it over to this key. We're using the 4.1 mini model. Obviously, you can use whichever model that you'd like. Session ID is going to be linked to our Telegram ID. Once again, we're getting context across every single agent. And then for our tools, I'm going to be using Perplexity. So if you're not familiar with Perplexity, it's sort of combining search engine indexing with large language models, which allows us to get more recent and up-to-date information from our outputs. Obviously, if we're going to be researching restaurants or local areas or news, anything like that, we don't want to rely on a large language model for that because it hasn't been trained on recent information, or at least it's been trained on information maybe that's a few months out of date or a few years out of date, and that is not going to be good for doing recent research. So we'll add Perplexity here. I've already connected my Perplexity account. It's very easy to do. Just go to Perplexity and create an API key. You might need to put $5 or $10 in credits, but once it's working, it will work right away. Just connect it with that key. And then what we're going to be doing is messaging a model. Super simple, just like any sort of AI model that we're going to be making a call to. For the model, they've got a few different models here with Deep Research, Pro, Reasoning Pro. I don't know why they have so many different names here for different types of models. You can do the research as to which one's best for which. I'm just going to keep it on the basic one. I'm going to let our AI agent define what we're going to be sending off to our research agent here. Otherwise, that's pretty much all that I'm going to be configuring for this. And if you do want to take it up a notch and have images come through, this is something that Perplexity can help out with as well. Because we are indexing real URLs, you can pull back real websites and sources and images and everything through this. If we click on add an option down here, you will see return images is something we can turn on and just toggle that on, and it will return those URLs that we can reference. And if you want to, you can have them sent back to the main agent, and the main agent can provide images in the Telegram response for whatever reason that you want to do that. Or if you want to have those images then sent back to your email agent to send them off to Greg in an email for whatever reason, you can start to think of the use cases and capability and flexibility of this system really all talking to each other. Otherwise, I'm also going to be adding in the Wikipedia tool. So jumping into here and looking into Wikipedia, I did go ahead and add in the Wikipedia module. Although it looks like this module has been deprecated, or for whatever reason, it's just not working on my particular instance here. It says that this node does not have any parameters, which is a bit of a shame. I used to use this quite a bit for doing research through just, particular Wikipedia articles, although it looks like it may have been deprecated on n8n. Not sure what's going on here. Otherwise, we're just going to be referencing Perplexity. So I'll rename this agent to be our research agent. Once again, doesn't make a difference really to the actual functionality, just a naming thing. And then we can prompt this if we'd like to tell it that you are a research agent. You will expand on what the user is looking for and send this into Perplexity to look up the latest information on this request. Please be detailed and get the most out of the response. So just getting it to expand upon it, send it to Perplexity, get as much as we can out of it so that we can get the most detailed response possible. And now that is pretty much all set up. We're able to talk to Perplexity pretty easily just through this particular agent here. Jumping back, we can now obviously call our research agent when we need to. Obviously, in this particular case, we wouldn't really be doing this entire setup if we're just going to be doing one tool call. If we wanted to talk to Wikipedia and do some web scraping and pulling through images, then definitely building out a separate agent here is necessary. So I've done that in this case. But if you are just doing one tool call, I would just recommend adding it as a tool to the personal assistant agent here, as that would just speed it up just a little bit. Otherwise, let's give this entire system a run through and see if we can send an email book some events in a calendar, and do some research all in one from our agent. So execute workflow or jump into Telegram and give it a request. Hey there, I'd really like to send an email off to Greg, giving him some research on the best restaurants in San Francisco to get donuts at. Once we have made that research and you found all of the good restaurants, we're going to send an email off to Greg, but we're also going to go ahead and book an appointment directly in for tomorrow from 5 to 6 p.m. And this is going to be where Greg and I go and eat these donuts. So let's see if it's able to process that. Obviously, I've put a bit amount of context into that. But let's see if we can send an email, book an event, and also do some research as well. So it's going through. Doesn't look like it's hitting research at the moment. Hopefully it does. Might need a little bit of better prompting to do the research there. But it looks like it sent an email and done a calendar booking. So I am going to do a little bit of better prompting to make sure we can hit the research agent so that the email is actually a bit better. Obviously, my prompting here is pretty terrible. So it hasn't, decided to use the research agent in this case. This is definitely not a production system, so you would not be doing such a terrible prompt as this. But if you need to do any deep research on any topic, please use the research tool. For example, if you need to look up nearby locations, please use the research tool. So we'll kind of force it to do that, but obviously you don't need to do this. This is just to give it an example, give it other examples, and it should be able to handle more stuff that is similar to this. But otherwise, just to get it to work. Hey, can you please send an email off to Greg, letting him know that we're going to be getting donuts tomorrow in the San Francisco area from 5 to 6 p.m. If you could also book the appointment right away, we don't have to ask Greg at all. Just book it in for 5 to 6 p.m. with Greg. Greg's email is greg@inflate.agency. Also do some research. So we want to be doing some research on the donut places in the San Francisco area. So do some research and then just send some of the options off to Greg. And there we go. All agents were just triggered in that request. We got some emails sent out, we got a calendar booked in, and we got our research agent going as well. This is the appointment it just made with Greg. So appointment with Greg for tomorrow at 5 to 6 p.m., which is awesome. That's exactly when I wanted to do it. It even set the location here to San Francisco. And it also added a description at the bottom here saying going to eat donuts with Greg. And this right here is the email that it also sent off to Greg as well, telling him that we've got an appointment tomorrow from 5 to 6 p.m. to go eat donuts in San Francisco. And here are some of the best places that I've researched that it has found as well. And if we have a look at the actual research agent and look at Perplexity, you'll see all the research that it did here, and you'll see that it's got some articles that it read through. You'll see that it's got a lot of articles that it went through with the best donuts in San Francisco, a bunch of other articles here, as well as to everything that it did research on that went back to the research agent and sent through a bunch of different locations that we could go to, which was obviously emailed to Greg as well. So there we have it. We've now got our multi-AI agent personal assistant system, which I can get on Telegram on my phone, wherever in the world I am, and I can tell it to send an email to whoever. We can get it to book appointments whenever, and we can get it to do some deep research and all be interconnected with each other as well. So we can research stuff and then send it off to people, book events, and it can all talk to each other. And not only that, but it's going to have memory of everything that's happening as well. So each individual agent will have memory on the entire Telegram transcript that I had as well. Now, just a quick note, I just checked my YouTube analytics and it turns out that 80% of you are actually not subscribed. So chances are, if you check the subscribe button, you're probably not subscribed. So if you could subscribe, that would be awesome. And if you could like the video, that would be amazing as well. And if you do see a hype button, which is kind of like a new feature by YouTube, click that button because it actually really helps out. And if you do want to learn how to build these n8n AI workflows without having to do any of the sort of manual building yourself, and you want to use n8n's new AI workflow builder, check out my video on it right here.